Honestly, it saves you so much money. So much money. There we go.
Yes, so much money
And lungs.
and lungs, and just think of the
Just think of the lungs. Just think of the lungs.
Are we on?
Yes, we are back on. I
Well,
think.
where were we? What was I
we're
yammering
talking
about?
pirate radio.
Oh, ah!
Aye. There we go.
Yeah, well, yeah. So this was London's. So there was, there was a buttload of pirate stations.
Yeah.
A lot of them only worked at weekends and evenings and stuff, which is essentially because lighter now. You're gonna wow.
Shh! Don't
look over here.
You guys can't see over there, which is great.
Yeah, it's really good.
There's
There's a cooker, so there's going to be a lighter somewhere.
There is, but there's no. It doesn't light. But
But you can light the gas.
well, actually, no. I've got lighters here.
Oh, okay.
I should have them down here.
Sorry, I really haven't planned this well at all, have
Oh,
I?
it's fine.
Well, planning is it's not really my thing.
You know, I couldn't tell.
I think about the odd thing from time to time, but planning.
Wait, you think as well? I always find it dangerous.
Well, thinking is my curse. Has to be said.
That's not a
Are
light.
you teasing me? No, that is not a lighter.
I'm not honest. Honestly, it's not.
What about someone to get a lighter?
No. I can just light. I got it.
I've
still-
cooker trick.
We can just light the cooker.
Which is like the cooker. I don't think people are going to be interested in watching this, but you might seriously want to edit this down.
There you go.
Thank you. don't hang yourself on the lighter.
I'm so thankful that no one can see what mess I've caused here with wires. It's great.
These are the kind of things that I usually get quite OCD annoyed about, but to be fair, I'm fine now. Right. Anyway.
Yeah.
So there was a bunch of stations, but like I said, a lot of them only did evenings and weekends, and this was predominantly because the Department of Trade and Industry.
Yeah.
Oh, it's called now. It's not called that anymore. Only worked Monday to Friday 9 to 5.
Oh right.
And it was them that would bust you.
So
They bring along the heavy mob in uniformed police officers.
Yeah.
But basically, they didn't really give a toss. It was like, fucking, who's this hurting? You know, it's just pirate radio.
Yeah.
So most of them didn't bother that. Now there was 2 or 3 big ones in my time, which was essentially 86 to 90, where they would transmit most of the time.
Yeah.
If they weren't transmitting, it's because they'd been busted.
Yeah.
And the two major ones were one called Centre Force and our one, which was Fantasy.
Okay.
Now, 2 things about that. Well, the Centre Force was always harangued, but basically once every 6 weeks or so, on average, they would find the transmitter. Yeah. I mean, it's not rocket science to find the transmitter.
it's a big wire.
Well, not even that. You've got anyone with a machine that gives you a strength indicator.
Oh, it's getting stronger.
It's getting stronger when I walk this way. Oh, it's getting really strong now. Oh, look, there's a 25-foot boom aerial strapped to that building.
I wonder what that's doing there.
Yeah, you know. So it wasn't difficult, but we weren't stupid enough to put the studio and the transmitter in the same place.
Nice. Yeah.
Now we favoured putting our transmitter in the top of lift shaft of this particular design of 22-storey blocks of flats that were predominant in South and East London, because there was a gap above, massive gap, perfect to put it up there, and you had massive lumps of three-phase power that you can just feed something off of, pikey wire it, so you could power your transmitter. You then had what we used to call our satellite dishes. Or our satellite link-up, which was 2 satellite dishes essentially pointing at each other, line of sight. That was the only restriction. You had to have line of sight from your studio to your transmitter. Nice. That was the way we did it. And we transmitted at airband frequency, like 120 meg.
All right.
To do that, which was, again, really illegal. But it was a tuned, beamed angle that was being sent less than 5 miles that way.
To here.
Yeah, London City Airport was there. And possibly got affected, but to be fair, I knew a person who did work in there, and I often drop the odd line to see if I, because you tell me all sorts of things, and that never seemed to be a concern. So maybe, don't know.
Well, it's like they always said, like turn your phones off and stuff like that. Oh wait.
No, here we go. Here we go. Look. No. Oh, that's going to work. You just need to operate it properly.
Oh. Wow. Never worked before. Okay. But yeah.
So
transmitters, airports.
So that's how it is. So we had two massive brick telephone mobile phones. Line out to it. Yeah, okay, brilliant, good signal.
Yeah.
In the studio, the decks and the mixer were never connected to the amplifier and the speakers. A radio was tuned to our frequency. So if you couldn't hear what you were playing, you were no longer transmitting.
That's clever.
Simple but effective.
Yeah.
And then we had this big kill switch,
Yeah.
which then stopped outlink, so you couldn't trace it back. But you know, that if you're stupid enough to actually disable the transmitter and then go and look for the people,
it's your own fault.
it's your own fucking fault.
Yeah.
So, but basically, once every 6 months or so, they would leave the transmitter intact and trace the line back and find us and bust the studio. That was a ball ache because we had to find somewhere else to put it, you know, some flat somewhere, blah. And that's how it worked.
Yeah.
Now, there was this one time in '88, which was colloquially known as the first summer of love.
Yeah.
These big blocks of flats, we happened to also have the studio at the time in one. It was only on the first or second floor. And they also had big green areas around them because there was no point in building anything else near there, you know,
Of course.
give them wide open areas for the people to relax. And this particular day, because it was a really hot summer, there was loads of people out, kids and prams and blankets and all that shit. And a couple of them were listening to our radio station, and we had a big following. We were the second largest, or the one of the two largest pirate radio stations in London. I mean, our transmitter got to the whole of London and most of the home counties from East London, where we transmitted from. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do with the BBC transmitter. That's another story.
I want to hear that.
I'll get to it, I promise.
Yeah.
We're London's biggest and best.
Yeah, so we're out in the Greens People's radios, listen to your radio channel.
Yeah, loads of people. So yeah, we had a massive following, and I was like, think to myself, little do they know that the fucking studio is just there. So I was walking past with my toolbox, and anyway, it was so hot that this day they decided, fuck it, we're gonna put some decks outside. So started setting up a table and some decks, and people were looking over, ran some wires out of over the balcony on the front of the studio, like power wires when they were power wires. They're also the transmitter wire.
Yeah.
Back up, signal wire back in. And after a little while, it was like, you ready? Go, 3, 2, 1, go! And I started mixing and started talking, and people started looking down at their radio. Going on there, like, and yeah, we broadcast live. The police showed up and everything. They didn't know we were transmitting because it just looked like we're having a party, and everyone was getting fun. Everyone was having a good time.
The radio sounds the exact same time that you sound. Oh, it was behind, was it?
No, exactly the same time.
Yeah,
this is analog, mate. This is no digital.
So all they'd see was like just your voices and music. We're like, there's nothing wrong here then. Nope.
Yeah, it was brilliant. We did put some speakers out, like as well,
just to make it look.
It was really where we were sounding, but through the radio, because everything was through the radio. So even if there was latency, there wouldn't be latency.
That's so good.
But it wasn't, because it's all analog. But yeah, so that happened. The transmitter, right?
Yes, BBC.
For those, wow, that's delayed.
Yes, I delayed it on purpose to hopefully keep the to keep the latency down, so it'll be better quality video before it goes out.
You like your stuff.
I just googled it.
I like
how best to live stream to YouTube sort of thing.
Fair enough.
Is the best thing to do. Yeah. But yeah, BBC.
So I'd like to start this story for those of you living in South London. Tickle throat. Don't try and talk when you've got a lung full of smoke.
That's true.
Those of you who are living in South London in the late 80s, well, basically the summer of '86, early '86. Who like to listen to Radio 1, for example, would have noticed that you weren't able to do that for approximately 2 days without retuning your radio to one of the other transmitters the other side of London.
Yeah.
That's because we stole it.
You stole
We stole the transmitter from Crystal Palace in South London. Well, I say we. I wasn't there.
I was not a part of this. I had no connection.
But I had subsequently worked on said transmitter. Now, your radio, your FM band radio, starts at 87.5 and finishes at 108 megahertz.
Yeah.
You would assume transmitters did the same thing. Not true. It's a silly idea to have a transmitter that would work across that whole frequency range. No, you had them tuned.
Yeah.
Now, and the frequency that you ideally want to transmit at is the one right in the middle of the band that it's tuned to.
Yeah.
Our frequency that we transmitted on was 98 bang on, or 98.1, which is right in the middle of 97 to 99 FM, which you'll recognise as the Radio 1 frequency.
You were in between Radio 1.
Well, yeah, fortunately they did that in London. But the transmitter tuned bang on perfectly, which is why we got to most of London and the home counties, because it was an absolutely perfect tuning. Because in London they were on 98.8, 98.5, and 99.1. We were down at 98 because around the rest of the country they used the other frequencies.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that was it, and we amplified it. You can put big stereo amplifiers in and just it's just a silicon diamond pair thing to make it to amplify a signal. It's not rocket science.
Well, you just said stuff I have no idea what you said.
Could be rocket science.
It's not rocket science at all. No. I 100% got that. Yeah, 100%.
I could do it. I could teach you in 10 minutes how a transistor amplifier works. Yeah. Fuck it. Even without a pen and a piece of paper, I'm going to try and do this. Right. Okay. You can use a transistor. A silicon transistor.
Yeah.
For two things.
Yeah.
That's what they're designed for. Either as a switch.
Yeah.
Or as an amplifier.
Okay.
You've got an in, an out, and a thing called a gate.
Okay.
Okay. And it's all done in silicon. Yeah. I bore you with the fact that there's two junctions in there that will only allow current to flow in one direction.
Yeah.
And the way it works, bore you, but you get the concept of a diode. Yeah, it's like that. That's a PN junction. This is a PNP junction. Okay. And so I've got 12 volts up there, and my output down here, nothing's open. It's closed until I put a voltage on here, and it opens.
Yeah, to allow it all to go through. Yeah.
A switch.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I happen to know that silicon forward biases at 0.7 of a volt. So it won't allow current to go one way, but you'll still need it to be more than 0.7 of a volt to go the actual other way at all.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
To go the way it's meant to go, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, if I hover a signal around 0.7 of a volt, so go down to 0.6 up to 0.8, okay, I can actually control how much this closes and opens.
Okay, right? Yeah, I see.
Got me big voltage at the top, I've got me little voltage down here that I'm moving things with, and I am now controlling a big voltage and making it do what this is doing smallly. That is now an amplifier.
Okay.
A Darlington pair is a very simple pair of transistors that takes that big output and makes that the gate of another transistor. So that's going big for an even bigger voltage up here, and it will even go bigger down here.
Okay.
It's double amplifying.
Yeah.
That is the basic principle of stereo amplification in your hi-fi.
Nice.
Alright. So, and in just to take that to the nth degree, when go back to switches, that's how memory works. It's either on or off, a 0 or a 1.
You either access it or you don't access it.
Yeah, you seen those little chips of memory that we put in there?
Yeah. It's got
There'll be about 10 to 15 billion transistors in that.
Fuck. How's that made? Is it made?
You draw it out in a very big diagram.
Yeah.
And you just shrink the image and shrink the image and shrink the image and shrink the image and then put it on a piece of silicon and then shine an ultraviolet light through it. Basically.
That's fucking impressive.
There's a lot more to it than just
of
that,
course,
but that is the basic principle.
That's fucking amazing, though.
Of silicon wafer fabrication. I worked in a place that did that. I was their computer engineer, but nonetheless I still watched it happen, and that was pretty cool. They used to get these big sausages of pure silicon that they would shave the wafers off, hence wafer fabrication. And if they failed for any reason, you have them as coasters. Pure silicon coasters I had when I worked at this place. Because you burnt something on it, it failed, it didn't work. Because the failure rate of like Intel processors is huge.
Really? So that means they were going to run out of silicon then one day because of that?
No, for two reasons. A, there's a lot more abundance of it in the ground. Yeah. But secondly, because of all the other rare earth metals and things that you'll find in motherboards and any green board and electronics.
They're going to run out first before silicon does.
No, we recycle them now, which is really cool. It's now to a point where the majority of those things, platinum, silver, gold, and the like, it's cheaper to retrieve them that way than it is to dig any more out of the ground.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, it's like it's like if you take your computer in to be recycled,
Well, it's precisely why we can do that now. Yeah. It's slightly annoying that there's no actual system for it. I don't know how the recycling centre in the municipal place in town works, but anyway, the point being that we can get more out that way now, which is really good.
But will we eventually not run out because we'll have so many people wanting computers? Because not everyone has computers right now, do they? It's sort of like...
No, but most people do. Well, most people have some form of electronics, TV. A smart TV has got almost as much of those components in it as your laptop. You know, and then you've got all manner of other coatings and pure substances inside the hard drives. There's used to be mercury inside the.
Did that?
Actually, and then used to recover that. I don't think inside the screen. Yeah, there's the non-LED backlit screens.
Oh right.
Were a fluorescent tube. No different to that one up there.
Yeah.
And in exactly the same way as that one up there, because this caravan runs on low voltage DC, so does your laptop. Yeah. But which is in this instance is about 11 to 15 volts. Yeah. That works on 12. Yeah. To actually get that to strike, you need 1500 volts. Huh. That little circuit board up there that you see. Yeah. Does exactly that. It takes 12 volt DC and generates approximately 1500 volts AC.
Fuck.
The bit in the middle that you can see in the cutout is the coil that does the work.
Huh. That's really cool.
And that's precisely what they have in the. Possibly those. They might be LED backlit now. Yeah. But the really thin. It's about 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter thick. Glass fluorescent tube, and no different to that.
It's just flatter. Well, it's just longer.
Thinner.
Yeah.
It's not flatter.
Well, no, but like it's longer that way as well.
Yeah, and what it has behind it is a big piece of white acrylic that it sits under, and then because it's at the bottom of the screen. Yeah. And reflects the light all the way through the acrylic.
That's so cool.
And then lights it, because you've possibly seen a screen work without the backlight. You can put a torch on it and you can still see all the back.
Yeah.
Because that's separate. That's the TFT.
So that's the thing. If you damage the bottom down here, you can basically none of that will turn. Well, you can't see any of that. Yeah. Because you destroyed the light.
But if you really wanted to be clever, you can just take the screen apart.
Put a new one in.
No. You can do that, and that's the bare way of doing it. But you can literally just take the TFT, pull it forward, just take the plastic out, take the back out, put a torch behind it.
just put a torch behind it.
Put it up against your window. Yeah. Work in the daylight. You know what I mean? All it is the backlight.
No, I totally get you, sort of thing. Yeah. So why haven't we advanced more than since? Like we're still using the same screens we were for a very long time. Like, of course, it's changed to LEDs, but
yeah, it's LED backlit, but it's still a thin film transistor.
Yeah, it hasn't developed much further than that yet. It's the last like 30 years.
I first saw my first screen out on the shop floor, as it were, in '99.
Okay, so near on 20 years then. Instead of 30,
Yeah, and we haven't. But the thing is, they want us to buy new screens all the time, especially new TVs. So we had flat screen TVs.
Oh.
Then we had HD flat screen TVs.
Then they were 1080p
then
flat
they
screen
were
TVs.
1080p.
Then
they had inside that we had 3D. Then we had, because they want us to keep buying more and new ones. They give us the top quality, latest and greatest. Yin Yang's never going to break down things straight away. We won't buy anything else. It's the everlasting light bulb argument.
Well, it's the same as like we had a fridge. Well, no, we had a freezer. It was my mum's freezer. It lasted about 50 years.
Yeah.
And now, if you buy a freezer now, 8 years, 10 years, maybe.
If that.
Yeah,
built-in obsolescence.
Yeah.
And it's just the way that the world is.
Yeah. Well, it's consumerism at its max, because if we can make stuff to break within a certain amount of time where you're happy enough to have it for that long, you won't complain.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, again, it's like the light bulb that's been on for like 120 years.
Well, there was this fellow who made a light bulb design, the everlasting light bulb. He was British, and he got threatened and bullied, and if he was in America, killed probably, until he signed over the patent to Philips, who had no intention of ever putting it into production.
Well, it's the same as there were stockings, women's tights
that didn't ladder.
Well, they came up with a design, and it was too well crisscrossed, so basically it was so hard to rip, and basically the manufacturer's going, we won't take it, because it has much less chance of ripping, make it weaker. And so they went back and made it less conjoined, so it rips easier. And hence why you can walk by anything, brush it, and you rip something off.
Yeah,
you have to go get a new one.
That's Unfortunately, there seems to be a proportion of people on the surfaces of the planet that doing that to the rest of the people on the planet is okay.
Yeah. And they feel it's a valuable resource to make people buy new stuff all the time, even though it doesn't really do anything. It's the same like a fridge. It's been a fridge for the fucking last 8 years, really. Well,
it's probably fairly inefficient compared to modern fridges, however. But
it's the same. It's the same design. Well, not the same design, but it's the same precept of electricity in pumping hot air out. Leaving the cold air in there. It's become more efficient.
There is definitely more. Yeah, I mean, there has been a big push for it, and they're infinitely more efficient than they were 50 years ago.
Yeah. But it's still the same.
It's a good example of things where back then were built to last because you built things properly. The concept of buildings built in obsolescence into something is silly. That's where the fix it shops and the like come in, and that's basically what I've been doing most of my life. I mean, my dad comes from the make do and mend fraternity, and he never had money, and he's an engineer, so he needed a tool, so he made it. The comical thing is when he eventually got a proper metal turning lathe, the particular model was a Myford 7.
Yeah.
He spent the first 5 years owning it, making things on it for it.
Because when it broke down, he
he built a new tool post for it. He built.
Oh right.
That was the comic value about that. But yeah, about things that I saw him make, we made a spot welder out of a bit of zinc that he had and a bit of copper and a piece of melamine that we cut a hole in and made a little springy thing, and we could put it in. I make millions of things. I mean, that's just one I can think of. So I've always known how to. I've always been almost taught. These words. If you own something, you should know how it works. Yeah. There's a big set of bolts behind me that I trust implicitly because I put this together. I know how it works, and it's German, so it's not going to go wrong.
Everything's going to work. Yeah. To be fair, if it's German, it works.
Well, there's a comical thing. There's a reason why they lead the world in cars, and you might not know this, but gliding. It's because after the Second World War we stopped making planes, and an aeroplane without an engine wasn't considered problematic, so they now lead the world in gliding and cars.
Well, they've had a big issue though with cars recently with the gas emissions.
The gas emissions. The thing is, well,
they've all had that issue.
All. Yeah. I can't believe that they've not all done this. It's just the largest manufacturer in the world has been caught doing it. Of course it is. It's diesel. Yeah. We've known this from the word go. cars were petrol. In America, trucks were petrol.
Yeah.
The emissions we knew about. We knew what it did and all the rest of it. We didn't use diesel. We only used diesel if it was a big heavy duty thing because we really didn't want to because we needed the torque. But you know, then all of a sudden cars started being developed. In 1990 onwards, cars started having diesel engines in them, high revving diesel engines that were operating as well as petrol engines. I remember it happening, and I thought to myself, diesel's bad. We know diesel's bad when it's dirty oil. I mean, I've spent the last, you know, so many years working on planes, living near RAF Lynham that has a Hercules aircraft and the old ones, where on a summer's evening you'd see them take off and disappear into a sea of their own shit. With the amount of crap that comes out of the back of these engines, because it's kerosene, which is diesel. You know, it is bad fuel, and we've always known this. And then all of a sudden, the government U-turns overnight and goes, "Oh yeah, no, you got to get rid of diesels now." Like the low emission zone in London, they're proposing that only vehicles, diesel vehicles less than a year old, can go in there. Like what? Oh, fuck off. I mean, I've got my little Vito is a Mark II, and it actually just conforms because it's a decent. It was when they started trying to make them a little bit more efficient, but they're still and fitting diesel particulate filters, which are hellishly expensive and go wrong and fill up. All sorts of problems, and so there's people that frig your car to take the filter out and then frig the computer to tell it it's there, and it'll even pass an MOT and things like that. And you're like, why are we going to this effort? Why are we taking out? Because to take catalytic converters out because they
pure platinum in there.
There's pure platinum in a catalytic converter. That's why it works.
That's cool.
But get it out.
Just get it out.
Get it out.
Just take it home with you. There you go.
What are you going to do with it?
Make a ring with it.
You've got. So it wasn't a bit of a surprise to me. Oh, diesel's bad. Diesel's just all of a sudden become bad, has it?
And you've seen it since the 90s. Sort of thing,
Well, we've always known it. That's why the vehicles we had were powered the way that they were.
Because they have to clean it. Because petrol has to be cleaned.
Yes. Yeah. You know, petrol is a much cleaner burning fuel.
Yeah.
The only argument that people have, well, you get more, the diesel's more efficient. No, they're just a pint of diesel's got a higher calorific value than a pint of petrol.
Yeah.
That is the only reason you get more MPG from diesel than petrol. The problem is that diesels are really, really inefficient with the way that they use it. Yeah. Comparatively. So anyway.
So what's your view about electric cars then?
You know, electric cars are the way forward.
Yay!
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Even if we are powering them, charging them up with fossil fuel power stations, it is a loaded more efficient to do it that way.
Well, the thing is, it's a big scale rather than a little scale.
Exactly. Well, not only that, but then all you've got to do once you've got an entire nation running on electric vehicles is change the way you produce electricity, which is a damn sight easier than changing everybody's vehicle.
Yeah, that's
so
the thing.
Let's get that bit done first,
so that everyone has an electric car. Because to be fair, honestly, I reckon in the next 10 to 15 years, everyone will, or the majority of people will have electric cars.
There is some issues that need to be resolved.
Yeah.
It's the aeroplane over the train thing.
Yeah.
It's much safer to fly. Yeah. If it does go wrong,
it's a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's batteries in a car, isn't it? Yeah. And they even sometimes put the batteries underneath the driver's, like.
Yeah, and also, because it's heavy, you put it in the floor pan.
But that's an issue.
Because you can
if
change
they go,
quite.
You've got the legs; they're strapped in. They're on fire.
Yeah, but they are getting around these things. They must be getting around these things. You can't. I mean, I know with shit lithium batteries, there's a fuckload of energy in those things, and they can be released simultaneously. You manage to drop a battery, a lead acid battery, the wet one, and you get the plates to touch in sulfuric acid, which generates
hydrochloric acid?
Hydrogen.
Hydrogen, yes.
So you've just touched two heavily charged, opposite charged plates together, made a really big spark in a... I'm not bad. I'm in the middle of an interview, kind of. Carry on with what I was talking about.
I think it can be quite bad in the heat of
really
what's on.
quickly.
Yeah. Electric cars, and we were talking about the efficiency and the dangers with having them touching together.
Yeah, well, anyway, going back to electric cars, I mean, a friend of mine came up to me with an idea the other week about modding current vehicles with electrics. And he proposes, fitting an electric motor in the drivetrain somewhere. Pretty easy to do on a four-wheel drive vehicle. You just stop it being four-wheel drive. And you can just put a motor in there that slaves in and delivers power. And then, but what you could do is completely disconnect the engine, especially if it's diesel and it's drivetrain, and have the motor and basically turn it into a diesel electric. Now, why don't trains, diesel trains,
do
diesel turn? Why does the engine not turn the wheels? Because it doesn't. It turns a big fuck off generator. When I say fuck off, I mean 3 times the size of this caravan. Generator.
Is there an issue with the torque?
Well, there is a bit. It's just infinitely more efficient to leave the diesel running at 1 set RPM. That's what you do with diesels. Generators, plant. Even your 360 diggers and things like that. They don't rev up and down.
No, they don't.
It's
Tractors
all
as well.
hydraulic.
Like, they're all on the same sort of rev.
And your PTOs and all the rest of it.
And that's why it takes so long to do anything, because it just sits there. It just sits there.
Yes and no, but but basically, 2,700 RPM is pretty good for a diesel. I mean, it will sit there all day generating power, not putting it under load, changing load,
consuming the same,
breaking things inside it, because it takes a regular amount of fuel. Because do you drive?
I do, yes.
Right. Okay. When I was taught to drive,
a petrol car.
Right. All the while, right. 2 things. If your vehicle is in gear, and the rev meter is reading above idle, idle would be about 800 to 1,000 RPM, and your foot is off the accelerator, your car is not consuming an ounce of fuel. Because your foot's off the accelerator, which means the fuel valve is closed.
So there's nothing else being used.
The only other time does fuel get put into your vehicle is when you're idle. And that happens when the revs drop below 800 RPM. It stops it turning on, it stops it shutting down. Otherwise you have to keep your foot in it through. Simple.
It's why you come to a traffic light, you stop, and just tick there.
Yes. That's precisely why. So, armed with that fact, you can now go downhill in gear, take your foot off the accelerator, you're not using fuel.
Hence why a lot of people do that, I believe.
Yes, they do. Some of them would have been taught to do this. Don't put your foot on the clutch and coast down, because it's still using fuel by idling the engine. So, and the other fact that every time you move that accelerator, you are wasting fuel.
Okay.
Accelerator open, accelerator closed. That is the amount of fuel to do 2,000 RPM.
Okay.
Right. 800.
Yeah.
2,000.
Yeah.
In the time, it's not doing 2,000 RPM by the time I've got there.
Yeah.
But all that while I'm throwing fuel at it, and it's not burning all of it because it is accelerating.
Yes. Yeah. It's going up to 2,000 RPM.
Yeah. So it is throwing the extra out until it gets to 2,000, and then it's back to not throwing any.
Yeah, exactly. It's why accelerating control is so important, because if you keep it regular, the car will just coast.
Well, arguably yes, but if you don't move your foot on the accelerator, you'll find you'll use a lot less fuel. Yeah, yeah. I've proved it with my friend. He can't stop moving his foot on that bloody accelerator. We did the same journey in his car. Yeah. I drove back. He drove there. He did it in something like 38 miles to the gallon. I did it in 59.
That is massive.
Big difference.
That's 21 miles to the gallon more.
Yep. Because he kept moving his foot on the accelerator. It's a diesel. Doesn't want to change revs.
Just want to sit there. Yeah.
It will happily change torque.
Yeah, yeah.
When you go up and down a hill.
Yeah, yeah. It will just.
But it will keep going up and it will keep going down, and it won't change the revs because your foot hasn't moved. Yeah. The clever new ones with the computers probably will make it move. But when that foot is controlling the fuel valve, and you don't move the fuel valve, it doesn't accelerate. Anyway, there's things when you're driving a diesel van and you're fueling it yourself, you learn.
Yeah, just to try and save as much as you can.
As much fuel as I can, and I get about. It's plated at 32, and I get on good days 35 out of it. Bearing in mind it's on 190,000 miles.
That's fucking good, man.
Yeah,
that's like
keep the air in the tyres.
Yeah, yeah. Keep it at the right PSI, of course.
The right PSI.
Don't go too hard. Don't go too soft.
You go too hard in the summer, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you don't want to go too hard in the winter.
Oh god, no, because you slides, especially when your ABS doesn't work.
I don't have ABS in my one. I've got a Renault Kangoo. It's coming up to be a classic car soon. I know.
No, mine hasn't got ABS at the moment, or traction control. Those lights came on the dashboard about 8 months ago. Mine to get rid of them.
Mine is such a basic car. Like literally, even the speedometer doesn't work. I've got to use sat nav.
You know that's not a legal requirement.
It's not. No. It's not. It's why it passed MOT the last 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah, it doesn't need a working speedometer.
Which is really interesting. I find it's like stop you over. How fast are you doing? I don't know.
That is due care and attention right there.
No, I've got
even without a speedometer, the argument is you should know the speed that you're doing. And at the end of the day, you've got a 10% tolerance.
Yeah, yeah. So if you go,
if you read it at the second that they clocked you, if you're
at 65 miles, that's a 60 zone, then you
say 60.
Yeah. I was at 60 miles.
If you're in a 60-mile-an-hour zone and you were doing 65, and they're asked what speed were you doing, so you say 60. Yeah. Because you got 10% tolerance. Yeah. If you were doing 80 and in the 60,
there's not much you can do in that situation.
You'll go, because if you say 60, due care and attention. Yeah. Right
so
there.
If you say 80,
they'll go, why? Or, I don't know actually, because I'm in spin for a very long time. Yeah.
Yes.
Now I got a funny story.
You start telling that, I'll make the tea.
Alright.
Yeah.
So I'm 17.
Yeah.
I've got a car.
Yeah.
I joined the Air Force when I was 16.
Yeah.
I might be 18 by this stage actually. I happen to have 2 mates in the back, but that's kind of irrelevant. And we're right by RAF Halton Camp.
Yeah.
We're in one of the villages about a mile or 2 down the road.
Okay.
And I'm speeding.
Yeah.
Now, I am going to justify this. I'm going to attempt to. I was 17 or 18. I'm 44 now. A, it was a long time ago. B, I was in Her Majesty's Royal Air Force and thought I was invincible.
Yeah.
There's a lot less cars on the road. Anyway, I was speeding. I'm not going to argue against that.
Yeah.
And I was driving west at about 6 o'clock in the evening, 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening.
Sugar?
A quarter of a teaspoon, please. Very funny about my tea. Yeah. Bit less. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. So 6 o'clock in the evening, driving west.
In the summer.
Yeah.
Early summer or late summer, I'm not sure which. Basically speaking, the sun was setting and I was driving towards it.
Okay.
In this time, the IRA were still taking pot shots at us. And one of their favourite things was to sit in a village or a set of traffic lights outside a camp somewhere, look for some average military looking folk and then shoot them.
Okay.
They haven't always got it right,
yeah.
but this was one of their tactics, and this was still happening in my time. So I'm driving,
yeah,
and out between these two cars comes this figure waving a gun. I instantly went to the training that I was given.
Yeah, run.
Which was, well, I'm in a vehicle.
Yeah.
And I'm travelling at about 45 miles an hour in a 30.
Yeah.
Is to duck behind the steering wheel and floor it.
Yeah.
Which is precisely what I did.
Yeah.
And as I went down to the out through the window and I saw the police car.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought, because I'm shouting, your mates are in the back, like, fuck! And I was like, ooh, fuck, that might have been a police car.
Yeah, yeah.
And I looked behind me in the rear view and I could see these two coppers running towards said car. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I pulls in and start. I mean, I must have been doing 70 or something by this stage. Lovely, mate.
Okay.
Thank you. Perfect.
Yeah.
So I stops the car and I gets out and I starts walking back towards the police car.
You just sound like the BFG just then.
The BFU?
The BFG.
BFG, did I?
Yeah, yeah. I gets out and I gets out and I starts to walk into.
So yeah, I starts walking towards them, and then you can see them running. They're kind of sort of stopping, and they're sort of leaning on the top of the police car as I'm sort of walking up, and they're going, "Can't wait to hear this one." And I went, "It's a good one."
Yeah.
And I was considering I was 18, and I see the face of this bloke, and he's got to be my age now. Because you could see them. All right, go on. And I'm like, I was brandishing my RFID card at the time. That you can tell as an RFID card at a distance because it's blue and it's really obvious. And if you're a copper near an RAF cam, you should really know what one of those things is. So I'm brandishing this as I'm walking up. I said, it's a good one. And he says, you just walked out in front of my vehicle waving a gun as a silhouette in the sun. Now, I'm from the military camp 2 miles down the road. I did precisely what I was taught to do. You were lucky I didn't hit you. You could see he was like, hang on, how was this chap talking to me? You could see him looking at his mate like, is he actually saying this to us? I didn't stop. And I says, you were lucky that didn't happen. You're lucky that I'm not going to report this. Now, what are your details? Right, okay. I'm going to get back in my car now. Alright? But think about it before you do that again next time, boys.
No.
Genuinely fucking balled it out and got away with that.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, mate,
that's balls of steel. Wait, not balls of steel. That's balls of titanium right there. That's like, no.
I've been to a war zone, at least one war zone at this stage.
Yeah.
I was gung-ho and, I was invincible. And I had a gob. And I was confident with my gob. And when I started, there were times where I was going, I'm like, oh shit, I started now.
But I gotta keep going.
I gotta keep going to save face. Yeah, there's all sorts of, yeah.
Honestly, man, that's an amazing story. I fucking love that story.
Was it genuine? That was genuinely the first time I've been pulled for speeding.
I got away with it.
I've never been nicked for speeding by a copper and got the points or the fine.
Nice.
Not once.
Touch wood. Although to be fair, I have never speeded while driving. Not once.
Right.
No, I haven't. No, genuinely, like whenever I get in that car.
Do you ever drive in a 20 mile an hour speed limit and keep to it?
Yes.
I'm going to
Every
say.
time.
Oh, hang on.
No, the thing is that it's been drilled into me. And the thing is, like, I've watched.
Drilled into me.
Well,
Didn't
sure it has. No, but it has in that sense. Just like I just don't like the feeling of it.
Oh, to be fair, I don't speed now, mainly because I won't give the fuckers the satisfaction of nicking me. That, and I drive. I do drive quite a nippy little.
Although to be fair, I drive a Renault Kangoo.
Well, yeah.
Again, it can't go over like 60. Only just.
Yeah,
like
16,
in Ireland,
16 to 30 is your licence.
Shh. It was a 15.
In Ireland, it doesn't really matter because it's freaking Ireland.
Well, no, the thing is, you can go faster on the motorways in Ireland than you can in England.
Really?
Yeah, the motorways in Ireland, you can go 5 miles faster.
What? You're telling me that the national speed limit in
Ireland
is 75?
Yes. It's 100. It's 100.
Oh fuck! It's in clicks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
no, you're right. It's in kilometres, so you can. I was like, why would?
Motorway speed.
Oh well, it'll be 90 clicks is 56. 100 clicks is 62.
So I think it's 130 or 120.
120.
120. Yeah.
Is 75 and a bit.
Yeah. So I can go 75 miles an hour in Ireland's motorways. So I was on the motorway from Clare to Galway, sitting at 75 miles an hour all the way down. Literally just there, just 75 miles. Yep.
Oh, what was I just about to say? That was really funny.
Ireland. Issues driving.
No, I didn't do driving in Ireland. I just watched it.
Honestly, though, to be fair, like I have driven the back roads. The back roads, you do not go the speed limit in the back roads. Barely anyone does. Depends why somebody crashes on the back roads.
I imagine so. It's just the thing is, I went to Ireland. It just reminded me of like being in this country 25 years ago.
Yep.
In a lot of ways.
Well,
the
growing
driving
up,
attitude.
Well, growing up, I got all of the, I kind of got like all the kids shows from like 10, 15 years before, before the current time, basically, sort of thing. So I get like the kids shows that were being shown years and years and years ago. Sorry.
That's right. Oh, I see.
Yeah. Just got to tuck it in there. Where's that?
Thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, so that was a really interesting. Yeah, that's a really interesting way of living because like everything's backwards. Well, not backwards. It's just delayed by a period of time, which is so weird. Just like the Irish abortion issue was, sort of thing. Like it's just being cleared up now. But to be fair, that's more of an issue of the church being such a big part of Ireland. Like government and schooling and everything for such a long period of time.
Interesting. Ireland has seen very little conflict in its history, comparative to almost everywhere else in Europe, because the Romans didn't want it.
Yeah,
the Danish never got to it.
But the English did a lot of shit to it, though. To be fair,
the English did.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best ones I talk about was the Irish famine of I think it was 18.
Yeah, that was it.
And that was like because the thing is they had a famine before that.
Yeah.
There was a famine before that, but what they did is they closed the borders for food export. So all the food that was being made by Ireland stayed in Ireland. So food prices went down, so it was affordable. So not very many people died for that.
When the famine started, we had a Labour government. The Labour government funded the Irish so they could be fed.
Yes.
They lost the next general election when the Conservatives took over. They stated that the famine was over.
Ah, yes. Well,
and in doing so, we're able to stop the aid. Yeah. And that then killed several million.
Well, yeah. Well, it's like So I talked about this because it's all on Wikipedia. So I was like looking up on there and looking at like all the side links and stuff like that.
Be careful. This is what I've done recently. I've been watching old documentaries about history because the cool thing about history, is it shouldn't really change. And if it does change, there could be a reason for it, and it might not. It might be nefarious. And this thing's happening. You got to remember things like history is written by the victors.
Yes.
So the history that we think we know is probably a bit inaccurate.
Oh yeah. Well, it's the same as like everyone knows that we dropped the bombs on Japan and
the Americans did.
We did. Yes. Sorry.
The Americans did.
But Japan had already capitulated by the time they were about to drop the bombs. But because they hadn't done it fast enough, the Americans were like, all right then. Because again, it's because of Pearl Harbor and all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah. It was the retribution.
Of course. It was the same as England, like you said earlier about England flattening One of the German cities.
Britain, but yes,
Yeah.
flattening. No, I am being pedantic for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, we flattened Dresden
Yeah.
at the end of the Second World War.
Yeah.
After, more or less, as Germany was capitulating.
Yeah.
We recognised it was on the cards, it was going to happen. We did a balance of things. Well, this is out of balance. Well, we need to flatten Dresden,
Yeah.
and then we'd be in balance, and
Yeah.
then you can fucking.
And then you can. It's like no, you can't capitulate. But we want to. No. Sorry, we will not accept your capitulation until we've bombed
flattened
the
Dresden.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Japan, like two cities. Although to be fair, the Americans wanted to test it out on a civilian population as well. It wasn't just.
That was mostly why that
Well,
happened.
yeah, because the Americans had been testing it out on the islands, but they just had no idea how
It would affect people.
how effective and
Yeah,
how.
they could have tested equipment and buildings and ground and all sorts of things.
Well,
They
of
hadn't
course.
tested
Of
thousands
course.
of people.
Have you seen the map on the amount of bombs that have been dropped? Nuclear bombs have been dropped.
Oh
on
god,
the
have
Earth.
you seen it in
Yeah.
in time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes more and more and more, and then it
Yes.
just stops. It's like something like 600 or 800 nuclear bombs. Have been
And some 1,500 explosions have actually been detonated.
Yeah.
But it's already relevant after the first one. The world was contaminated.
Yeah.
Instantly. Now.
It's just the issue that they get more and more of it building up. So,
Yeah.
particles
Well. Yes and
per
no.
million.
Yeah. But I think now. This stems back to a conversation I had with a physicist at Reading Uni years ago.
Yeah.
He was. I don't remember why they needed to do this, but it says, oh, if we put it in this solution and we bounce one of the particles off of it, this will happen and we'll be able to tell this from it. But to do so, we need steel that's forged before 1945.
Yes.
And I'm like, what?
It's the same as if you get tools made before 1945, they're better quality, I believe, because the
Older tools are always better quality, invariably, yes.
Yeah, but it's to do with. The
I've
nuclear
never
bomb
heard
drop.
that. I'm not saying that it's not the case.
It's just
That's-
something that I've heard. Is
right.
Like
then
tools before the Second World War, because the steel was already forged before the bombs were dropped.
Yeah.
There is a difference in
there
the
is
steel.
there is a difference in the steel. I didn't realise it made a difference to that degree.
Apparently it does. Apparently, again, do not quote me on this, but that's what I've heard.
It's in precision work, yeah, I imagine it could well be. But let's say this was an experiment that I don't know, they were watching so many radioactive particles come off of when they bounced, and they said, yeah, we're going into the middle of. They were going to boatyards and stuff, and just cutting up boats to get to non-rusty material in the middle. Yeah.
Just to get
In
that
bulkheads, just to get
that
steel.
amount of steel
Yeah.
from the. Really interesting though.
Yeah, but I've never come across that since that conversation some 20 years ago.
I don't know where I got. I think I was talking about tools to someone, sort of thing. They're going, yeah, the best tools you can get are before the Second World War, basically, because the quality of steel is better because of.
It'd be interesting if that came from a toolmaker or a physicist.
Yes. Might be from a toolmaker.
Or an engineer or a physicist.
Yeah.
Go to the Big Bang Theory for the reference to the differences there.
Oh God.
You're only an engineer.
But
I put into motion the shit that you think of.
I literally create those rockets that you send up into space,
Yeah.
and all those drones and everything like that. I make all that. Yeah, but you're just an engineer. So, I do more work than you ever do. Well, it's like, well, to be fair, it's like Howard's biggest accomplishment was making a poo machine that goes into NASA space station.
Yeah. Well,
I do like the Big Bang for the fact that it's mostly accurate with most of their
yes, that is
terms
kind of
and-
their point. Yeah,
because they're getting proper physicists to actually go
Yeah.
over the script. And go,
Yeah.
is this all correct? If not, let us know.
Just ask Sheldon.
What's that?
Just ask Sheldon.
Yeah. Although there is only one professor, there's only one doctor in Big Bang Theory who has a real doctorate.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
It's Amy Farrah
Yes,
Fowler.
it is. She actually has her own doctorate.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got a funny feeling it's actually in neuroscience.
I think it is actually
Yeah.
neuroscience.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's the only one of the Big Bang cast of the doctors that actually has a doctorate.
Yeah.
Doctor. What's it?
The symbol of that badge.
Yeah, it's it's a Yamaha.
Oh yeah, see it now.
Yeah. Don't know why it's there. It's just been there for ages.
That's really old.
Yeah. Mine now.
Yeah.
Apparently.
There's no Yamahas here. There's
No.
a Honda.
Well, this used to be Crystal's caravan.
Oh, well, there we go then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did mine, but he never lived in it.
Yeah. I don't think he lived in this one for very long or at all. Because I know he's living in Daniele's one for quite a bit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. That's his too.
Yeah.
I think still is his.
Have you seen his new 4x4?
No.
He's got a new 4x4.
Oh, got no money, has he?
Later. But yeah, no, like I get. Actually, this brings me to an interesting point that I wanted to talk about was nuclear power, because we were having a really interesting discussion a couple of weeks back about that. Because you were saying that's one of the safest forms of energy.
It is.
Yeah.
Well,
this is what I want to talk about.
Safest. It's a difficult term. It's
one of the safer.
It's like flying over any other form of transportation. It's fine until it goes wrong. If it does go wrong, it goes wrong in a big way. But I don't know how many nuclear reactors there are generating power around the world, but there are a fuckload.
Yeah.
And I'm only aware of 2 major incidents. Now, granted, I know a fair bit about the Chernobyl incident, which didn't really hit the press.
You were telling me about this before. This is really interesting. Yeah. Several
million Russians died in that. A lot of them were volunteers.
Yeah.
A lot of them got volunteered.
Yeah.
But basically, when reactor number 4 at Chernobyl, which isn't actually in the Ukraine,
was being built, because it wasn't finished at the time.
It wasn't finished. They were in the testing.
Yeah.
The full ins and the outs of it are open to a lot of conjecture of how it occurred.
Yeah.
The upshot is it occurred.
Yeah.
Now the problem was, as I mentioned, it was reactor number 4 out of 8. Reactors 1, 2 and 3 were online.
Yes, we were saying it before.
Now, albeit I have since found out you can actually quite easily shut down a nuclear reaction. I do not know why they didn't.
Maybe number 4 couldn't be shut down because it wasn't.
It wasn't finished. No, but you take
operational, so the safety measures wouldn't.
But you. I don't know. I don't know enough about that particular point.
But that's really strange because it wasn't finished, but it was running.
1, 2 and 3 was running.
Yeah, but number 4.
Number 4 wasn't online.
But it went critical.
Critical, interestingly, is what you want. Yeah. But there's a terminology. Having critical mass is when you have enough fissionable material to keep regenerating the reaction.
But that's not so good when you've got unfinished nuclear reactor, though.
I don't know enough. I'm going to get back to you on this because this is like my next area of research. The things that were a fact is that there was bits of that reactor on the other buildings that were running, and they were using helicopters to crane them off and crane all the stuff away. The people that were in those helicopters, it was whether the helicopter or they let go first due to radiation. Thousands of people and helicopters and the equipment was used, but they were initially pouring shitloads of water at it.
Okay.
Put the fire out.
Then I guess became irradiated water.
Well, not only that, but water was falling underneath it and filling essentially a swimming pool. Yeah. And somebody went, if this burns through and the mass that's on fire hits that water, the energy released will take out half of Europe.
Fuck off.
There's nothing really in the Russians was worrying about, but it would have taken out half of Europe.
Fuck. Yeah. Now that would have been interesting.
Yeah, it would have taken Romania, Hungary, all the way across there.
Poland, all the Western countries.
Right. Two things that happened in 1986.
Yeah.
Berlin Wall came down. The end of the United Soviet Socialist Republics in 1989. They are linked.
Was that a leading factor for them coming down?
Two things. Which had the upper hand in the decision, I don't know. But two major things occurred with reference to that during the Chernobyl disaster. Yeah. One, they needed international support.
The Russians.
Yeah. which meant they had to talk to us.
Yeah. So the Iron Curtain had to be broken. Yeah.
And secondly, the Soviets went bankrupt. They threw everything at this
because they were trying to stop it, basically.
Yeah. I believe there would have been money coming from the West, because there's no way the West did not know that was occurring.
Like they're like, or that they instigated it
to lose half of Europe.
To break the Iron Curtain.
No.
No?
No.
You think it was just a freak accident?
Yes. I do. Because you would not. There was no way you could have controlled that situation to be able to get the things happening. That happened.
Yeah.
So whether it was actually says the Russians, these Western guys ain't actually all that bad.
Yeah.
And the breakdown of the Soviet Union due to them being bankrupt because of that incident, amongst other things, I believe aided the fall of the Soviet Union. We learned an awfully large amount from that. I mean, there are several different ways of using uranium to generate electricity.
Yeah. Pardon me.
When you dig it out of the ground, uranium is typically 0.75% uranium-235 over 238. 238 is inert. 235 is the fissionable material you want.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, to be able to put this into a standard pressurized water reactor, you need to refine the level of 235 to 238 to about 3 to 5%.
Okay.
This is quite a difficult task because when you ordinarily separate different types of things from one another, you can go, well, the properties of salt means it'll dissolve in water, so I can get it out of the sand, for example. You're playing with uranium and uranium.
You're trying to differentiate.
The only difference between them is less than 1% of its atomic weight.
Fuck. That's
3.
hard.
Yeah, 235 with 338.
Yeah.
So you use a centrifuge.
Yeah.
It's got to be really refined and really clever. And basically, that is the thing that you need to make nuclear weapons, is the ability to refine uranium.
Because you can get uranium.
Uranium digging out of the ground.
Yeah, it's in the ground.
Yeah.
But it's actually having the ability to process it to the point where it's...
If you can make it 4 to 5%, then you can keep going to 90. Once you're at 90, you've now got a weapons grade uranium.
Yeah. And that's the difference,
And that's it. And this is the problem they have with the nuclear proliferation. Yeah. This is their problem. It's not people having, or countries having, the ability to generate electricity from nuclear.
It's the issue they're going to
because they can buy the refined uranium from the places that make it. Yeah. Interestingly, the Americans banned it. Weirdly.
What, banned selling?
No, banned making it. I don't quite understand how that works, but this is another research area I need to look into. Yeah. So,
it's been the whole issue with the whole.
It's basically because the Americans can't control their own people.
Yes.
Not to make it in the Senate.
Yes.
Is essentially the argument.
But I'll say about the war that the Americans went into because of a suspected nuclear weapon in
in Cuba. Well, no,
not Cuba, in the Middle East.
Oh, what, the weapons of mass destruction? They were chemical weapons, apparently.
Ah, right.
And the only reason we knew that he had them is because we sold them to him.
No, these were the nuclear weapons of mass destruction that were never found because it never actually existed.
I thought they weren't. Oh, they were. Sorry. Yes, you're right. Yes, because they never did exist.
Yeah. they never existed in the first place because it went in for about 4 or 5. I want to say it's Afghanistan. It's not Afghanistan.
It was Iraq.
Iraq. Yes, thank you.
It was Iraq.
They went in the
second war. The second war in Iraq. The first one happened in your lifetime. But yeah,
and they're like, there's mass weapons of mass destruction. No, there's nothing here.
But so it's the refining now. Yeah. So you can have your pressurized water reactor that needs 3 to 5% uranium, and you can you are your island. Yeah. Fuck it, your island. Yeah. No one wants the Irish to have the ability to make nuclear weapons, so we'll give them. I don't even know if they have any. We'll give them. They can build their own nuclear, and we'll just sell them uranium. Problem solved. It's not like they can refine it any further without the uranium enrichment facility, which is the thing that you need. Yeah. Now, there is a second way of gleaning fissionable material, and that is in a man-made element called plutonium-139.
Yes, plutonium. Yes, I'm aware of plutonium.
I actually can't remember enough about that to spout off, but that is the second way of doing it, and you glean that from spent nuclear reactor waste.
Oh.
But the process in doing so is incredibly ecologically unfriendly.
Yes.
But that's not like that affects those people. But plutonium has no other use than nuclear weapons.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the only thing it can be used for. Yes. How come it can't be used for doing more nuclear fusion with us? Because it is plutonium.
I don't know.
I'll have to look into that as well.
Maybe you can't control it.
Maybe it's it might be too volatile.
It might be too volatile.
Because in nuclear weapons you want to be as volatile as possible because you want to have the biggest reaction as possible. Whereas if it's a nuclear reactor, you want it controlled to the point where you can make sure it doesn't go to shit and blow everything up quite quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Now, two more things on that.
Yeah.
The only reason that you need to enrich the uranium in a pressurized water reactor is that the molecule makeup of H2O has got two receptors that will happily absorb a neutron. The problem with that is because it absorbs one of the neutrons, it doesn't have enough to continue the reaction from 3 when you're in less than 1% material. However, if you make heavy water, deuterium, tritium,
I've heard of heavy water before,
doesn't have that function. It will not absorb that neutron, and therefore it will keep the reaction going.
So you don't lose it
at the same rate as you dig it out of the ground, less than 1%.
Oh wow!
The Cando's are made by Canada.
What? By Canada. By
Canada. Canada. And they make these. They got them themselves. They sell them around the world, and they use uranium out of the ground, straight. That's a fact.
Yeah.
The other fact, just to complete weaponization of uranium.
Yeah.
The bombs they dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima in 45 were uranium bombs.
Okay.
Right?
So they weren't plutonium bombs.
No, they were uranium, but moreover, they weren't what we have today.
Because what we've got today is more powerful, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
What we have today is technically a fusion bomb.
Yeah.
Albeit the initial reaction is started with uranium, there's only a small part of it. That uranium reaction is completely surrounded by lithium. Yeah, same shit in your batteries.
Yeah.
Which has a period atomic number of 6, and when you split it, it gives you 2 3s.
Yeah.
Which is water and heavy water.
Oh. So it turns into heavy waters,
which you can then go and reuse in your reactors.
Wow. I mean, you probably won't once you've bombed up a city.
No, but that's a byproduct. In the process of making it. But
we got some heavy water. Quick, get out of the bomb, quick! Now drop it.
To give you some idea of the yield difference between having the uranium reaction on its own to the what is called a thermonuclear device. You wrap it in lithium. Is between 400 and 700 times as great. Oh yeah.
Fuck.
Oh yeah. And we've got fucking hundreds of them. The line that we have enough material to vaporize the planet several times over.
Yeah, I've heard this one. Yeah, so if we did go to nuclear war, the world will be gone.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that? There was like a professor talking about this. It's the issue where most sentient life has gotten to. They've gotten to the point where we are now, where they've made weapons of mass destruction. The issue that they've had is they've used them, and so their world is gone. That's the biggest issue that they've found with most. That could be with sentient life. Is the reason we've not met them is because they've gotten to where we are now, and haven't gone past where we are now because they've all gone. I hate you. You hate me. Bam, bam. We're all dead.
I like the theory.
Yeah.
I genuinely can't believe if life developed it somewhere else, that it would turn into the arseholes that we have on this planet. I just don't believe it.
But the thing is, though,
it would be either a fuckload worse, or a fuckload better.
Well, I don't know, because the thing is that if it's the same way that we were made, which is survival of the fittest.
Yeah, I haven't thought this through, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's fine. No, but I'm just sort of putting this out my ass as well. But I'm just thinking, like, if most worlds are made with survival of the fittest in mind.
Yeah, that is
because a lot of life is derived by I survive more than you, so my genes get passed off, and we evolve. So even now, we've got the fight and flight response. You know, we've got if someone attacks us, we attack them, eye for an eye, British, German, all that.
Yeah, but that is because of that system.
Yeah,
doesn't mean that system will have to be employed next time.
No, this is true. But what I'm just saying that.
Could you imagine if you did it on a planet 300 times the size? Ignore the gravity problem.
Well, no, it'd just be stronger creatures.
More I was getting at is that the reason that we had to use the survival of the fittest is because we ran out of space and resources.
But that would eventually happen on all planets. Even if it's 300 times the size.
Unless there's something else that you can that controls the level of. I mean, think about it. The level. Well, I suppose because that goes to biology.
Well, the issue.
But this is why I bring up. I go even past that. That I think this is all a construct, because there are so many things in it that really don't make sense.
What our world?
Our world. Just look at procreation.
Yeah.
The concept of eating other living beings.
Yeah.
All of that to me is just wrong.
Yeah.
And if I can see that as wrong, then if that's the case, then this can't be real.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like everything's forced in a way to be a certain way. It's like if you like I've looked at it as well, kind of like it never makes sense. Like it doesn't.
No.
We're smart enough. We've got intelligence, yet we're still stupid.
Mm. That whole we don't use 90% of our brain.
Well, no, it's not that. No, not that. Like we realise everything that's going on, and we can agree for the whole part. Like our smartest people agree on a lot of topics. Like,
yes.
These are issues. These are not issues. Even like coming into climate change, but all that sort of stuff.
Plastic in the oceans.
They go like these are the issues, and we've got a brain comparable to understand it, and yet we don't accept it.
Society.
And that's the weirdest thing, is because society has developed in such a way that we can deny irrefutable proof to the extent we're just like, I believe this, and because I believe this, this is right. But these are the facts. You can't refute these. These have been tested and proven in every which way. Yeah, no, I still believe this.
You witness an accident on the road. 5 people witness that accident. 5 people go to court 2 weeks later. You get 5 different reports of what happened.
Or 5 people witness an accident. 5 people stand there and watch. But one person goes to help. One person goes to help.
Yeah.
There's 5 people there watching. It's that's to do with it's an effect in human biology. That's we studied this a while ago. I think we did it for our first aid course. Our first aid teacher was going on about it, sort of thing. There's something inside humans that it's like people want to watch a tragedy occurring in front of them, sort of thing. That
whereas I can't stand that.
Yeah.
Which there are almost every one of those things that you can pull up. Everyone wants to do this. Everyone wants to do it. Everyone's I really fucking don't.
Yeah.
Which puts me at odds.
Yeah.
With the world. Yeah. And well, therein lies my default position that I've been in for donkeys.
Yeah.
Succinctly put.
But it's such a weird world.
Precisely.
It is such a weird world. But going back into like if other worlds like they don't develop the way that we did, I think, if they had survival of the fittest mentality in it. So if there was animals eating other animals, whereas if there's a world where nothing ate each other, it was a very just peaceful world. They would develop completely differently.
Exactly.
But the issue would be is they'd be far too friendly to everything, so they become people like us would come to their planet, enslave them or kill them.
Well, that's sort of happened in this world.
Well, yes.
Every Aboriginal, virtually every Aboriginal fucking country.
I'm just putting.
Yeah, no,
I spatial value.
This is kind of my argument that if you didn't have to eat animals as part of the life thing, and you got your nutrients from, I don't know, the sun.
Yes.
Like
that would be
an awful amount of fucking life does.
It would be amazing if sentient life developed ways to have photosynthesis. That'd be incredible.
Well, there's no argument, given if we never developed animals and only developed plant life.
Yeah.
Arguably, given enough infinite time.
But the thing is that means that we wouldn't develop either because we're animal life, not plant-based life. So, it'd be different. It'd be different sentient life. Yeah.
Yeah, but it'll be photosynthesizing.
It would be Ents from Lord of the Rings. I don't. Sentient trees, basically that manage the forest basically, but they're trees. Yeah. They're just able to walk around, have 6 arms and 12 fingers, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but
it's just them just wandering around, just
Groot.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and they're able to kill it really either, as long as a root survives or something survives off it. You plant it, it grows up again.
Yeah, do you know? So that's why I always like the concept of other life. Yes, would be bipedal and have eyes and a head. And, really, I don't even think it could necessarily be of building materials, life-based building materials that we've even fucking heard of.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, the universe is so large. There's so many materials out there that we can't even comprehend.
There is the periodic table of elements that, as a scientist, I do have to hold to.
Yes, but the thing is, new materials are being found, so it's still being expanded.
New elements aren't. New compounds. Well, yeah, but there is no. Depending on how you want to look at this, I mean, there are places in the universe where you where you won't get all the time the necessary pressures and temperatures to produce them. Sometimes the way certain compounds are formed, but the concept of the forming of the compounds is totally within our scope and concept of how it could occur. From a material point of view. After saying that, you've got this dark matter, dark energy side of things, which
isn't it 40% of the universe's mass hasn't been accounted for?
Yeah, something like that.
Because they can't actually count it because they can't actually see it
or understand what it is and where it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because our technology
from that point of view, yes. Yeah. And if we get an understanding of this, then we could probably turn what we do know.
40% new materials on the scale.
Yes, but there would never be extra things in the periodic table. No. That's done and set. This is
a different periodic table.
This will be that. That'll be fucking huge or something. I don't know. But yes, there is
the dark matter periodic table. The periodic table, light and dark matter, basically. Yeah.
They might have equal and opposites all the way through.
That'd be incredible.
I doubt it, because the universe has never been that yin and yang. And that's the thing. Every time I love theoretical physics.
Yes.
Because if you study any of it and then leave it for a couple of years and then go back to it, fucking hell, right, that was wrong.
That's the thing.
Oh, we're doing this now. Wow, yeah, okay, that works. I'll give you that. And you see a page of fucking maths and you go,
that works.
Yep. Okay, I'm there. Yeah.
And then you come back a couple of years later,
and that's wrong.
Yeah. And this is right now.
Yeah. And I do that from time to time.
But it's a thing though, because scientists never finish looking.
Well, no, that's the point.
Things like you put a hypothesis forward, going, this is my findings so far. A few years later, these are my findings so far. Disprove that one, but prove this one.
E equals MC squared.
Yes.
Which in his later years, Einstein.
Eloquent.
Well, but actually, one of the things Einstein said before he died, I was wrong.
He was wrong.
He was wrong. His theory of relativity is wrong, and he is correct. Yeah. It is. And I can't remember why. But
it has paved.
Oh God, yeah, no, absolutely.
Like if Einstein hadn't done it,
somebody else would have eventually. But yes,
but we'd be so far behind, science and mathematics right now.
Yeah, we would have been without Newton. We would have been without.
We would have been with Newton and without Einstein, because Newton was before Einstein.
Yeah,
everyone's following Newton's laws.
Yeah. Without Newton, we would have been really far behind. It would have been the next person along. It's very difficult to say what would happen if we didn't have that person.
Yeah,
of course it is.
Well, it's like there's a really good Family Guy episode, if the church never existed, because they went to alternate dimensions, same year, same day, same time, but different timelines.
Right.
So like they have one like the church never existed, and they're 2,000 years in the future, basically, because there's no the persecution of scientists. You know, like during the Renaissance, during all the periods of time, like all the science could advance faster, basically, because there's no persecution.
Oh, that's not Christo leaving, is it?
No, Christopher's gone ages ago in the 4x4. I think he's up to Yorkshire.
Oh.
Yeah. He's not back till the next week. Yeah. Apologies.
Oh well.
Why do you want to talk to him?
Oh, never mind.
But what were we talking about? Yes, about the church not existing and the whole world being so far advanced compared to
because they didn't know. Yeah.
Actually, because there's no persecution going forward. Because that's the thing. Like lots of scientists, well, it's like the people that said the world isn't the center of the solar system.
Yeah.
It actually goes round the sun. Well, you're dead.
Yeah, they were burnt at stake.
Yeah. And then
Heretics.
you made those people afraid to, made the young generation afraid to say anything because, those guys got killed. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to keep farming my field here. Have fun, guys.
Right.
We done for today?
I think so.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, and humanoids of all ages, thank you for stopping by. This was one of the most interesting podcasts I have done to date. It's been so much fun, and I hope will we have you again?
Yeah, if you want.
I would love you.
By all means.
We got
send good comments.
Well, we got so much more to talk about.
Oh God, yeah. Where do you start? I'm old and I've been around. I get bored easy. So I've found out the stuff.
We haven't even touched on your whole RAF days. There's going to be so much.
There's a million stories. I've got all my comically home stories come from that time.
So yes, if you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, share it as much as you can, so more people see this. More, share it. But yes, thank you very much for stopping by, and I will see you on Monday at 6:30 PM. Thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.